How big is the whole? Oh, wow.
Can you hear me?
There, to give me a tour.
Yeah, no.
I didn't see it.
So. We just sat.
Well, yeah.
Not a lot.
Just bring it out.
Can you hear me?
Things are coming along.
Yeah.
Pausing on one side.
Starting to look nice.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Do you have something in the world?
Yeah,
find out.
Foyer, taking them at the front door right up. That's the meetings. You know, my views on it. Instead of saying,
I didn't see what happened.
Yeah.
Apparently lost his life 2 hours ago. He's still down there. It's gonna be the longest I'll be apart a month. Okay, all right.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It'll get pretty hot down there soon.
The longest minute I've ever experienced in my life.
So on one for 6 months.
Exactly. Exactly.
She found her pool strangle once.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yay, good.
Is that Debbie?
It is.
I wasn't loud enough, I guess. That's Debbie.
First time in my life, call the meeting to order. And Debbie, you joined just in time. We're gonna go ahead and do the roll, if you will.
Sure. Commissioner Bagwell?
Here.
Commissioner Brockmeyer? Commissioner Byrd?
Present.
Commissioner Dillon?
Here.
Commissioner Fry?
Here.
Commissioner Tunstall?
Here.
And Chairperson Schreiber. Okay, your quorum is established.
Thanks, Debbie. Everyone hear me in the gallery? Good, good. Okay, so first of all, in the packet is the meeting minutes from the April 1st meeting. So we need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve, sir.
Okay. That was seconded by Larry. Motion approved by T. Lee. Need a vote. Need a vote. Aye.
Hey.
Aye. Unanimous. Parliamentary procedure is just killing me.
I think you made that part up.
Okay, so the first item on the docket is the approval of the changes made to the parking standing portions of the ordinance that we reviewed last time and called out the changes. Matt inked those up, and if you had an opportunity to look through it, you can see the changes are, either stricken or highlighted and redlined. So,
You got one on page 7. On the top, it says limitations of parking to 2 hours, and then down below under 2, it's got the 3 hours.
Correct.
The 2 crossed out. They just need to be.
And 2 needs to be changed.
Yeah.
In the first.
Hang on, I'm looking at.
I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Right under downtown parking regulations,
2642A.
2642A says 2 hours, and then 2642 42,
To A, I,
II, whatever that is, says 3.
Just A needs to be changed.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other changes before we look to Matt to make that change, and we'll pass it in the next meeting?
But this is now in the form of a potential recommendation to council.
Yeah.
What are this status of this?
It is, and I suppose, you know, pending the change being made, actually made, I think we can pass it in this meeting and put it before town council at their next meeting. Is that true, Matt?
It could be, but their next meeting is pretty jammed up, so I would probably push it to June 24th. They've got the budget vote there, but that doesn't normally take much time.
Okay, but we can assume that the change will be made per this discussion, and we
Put
can,
it forward to that, and we'll
Okay.
have to have a public hearing at that June 24th. This would be a joint public hearing.
okay.
Actually, do we have to make it a, can we, sure. Does it have to be another joint hearing because we made it less restrictive, not more restrictive
For the
for the parking?
yeah, if I would think it was less restricted, we wouldn't need another.
We would need another hearing, okay.
That is correct.
So, yeah. I think that's normal, but, yeah.
Debbie Okay.
said something.
She said that's correct.
Debbie did.
So what's the real answer? We made it less, therefore we don't need it?
That's been my understanding.
So we don't need it.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay,
Could I make one observation,
yes,
which
there.
is that 2637 well is empty?
Okay,
And that we could really clean up on parking across space lines in the lot behind here right now.
Yes.
Sorry, what was that, Sarah? Could you repeat that? You talking,
Didn't park at DMV because there were about half a dozen cars that were parked wrong in the
Okay,
lot behind
okay.
the town hall.
the lines in
Just
the
need to
existing
get it
town lot.
Sealed and striped.
Yes,
You mean they were across the lines, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that.
not enough space.
That's correct. And you've had that in the books anyway to do sooner or later,
I do sooner. or
as
later.
the marina, remember?
Yep, I remember it well.
Okay, so strike the numeral or the digit 12, and Sarah made a note. Need the lines in the existing town lot. So do we need to, are we good with those changes then? All right. Then section 2643 off-street parking. This is where we're counting up the spaces. And it is in direct relation to, I think, that the apartment parking in town. That's a good question. Do we need to approve the less restrictive changes that we made to the ordinance, Matt?
It's informational, it's not. There's no ordinance behind it, it's just simply informational, you can strike it. It's just simply.
And advisory to council only.
Yeah, I mean, it's just simply information to show how many public parking spots that we have in town.
No, Matt, I was asking
No
if,
rule Associated with it.
I was asking if we need to approve the article, stopping, standing and parking before we go into the next one.
So you
Those-
want us to take a motion with the changes that we made. I'll never heard you about that, so.
Okay,
Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
All of Article 2, stopping, standing and parking.
yes,
Do we have a second?
second,
Thanks.
aye,
Okay, so,
take a vote,
oh, and now we take a vote. Aye.
aye.
Right.
All right, good. All right, so the informational piece with section 2643 also feeds down into the number of upstairs apartments, downtown current and projected. And as you can see, it's tallied up there, assuming 1.7 cars for each apartment. total off-street, that would be 78.75 cars, 79 cars. One's a clown car, one's the golf cart. And we, for total off-street parking, 164 spaces, so that means we have a surplus of 85 spaces. So
Can I
just,
just jump in with an explanation of why we're going through this exercise? We have on page 17, we have section 38.439 for schedule of off-street parking. And the business downtown ordinance says that there is one parking space for each 100 square feet of gross floor area or fraction thereof. It doesn't say ground floor, it says floor area. So I'll use 23 as an example. It's 3,500 square feet. I would need to have 35 spots.
You better get busy.
You guys have better get busy, of the available. That's why I did the information to show that we have 164 spots in town. Because if you go through the list of buildings, you know, even John's building, which is something like 17,000 square feet, he would need 172 spots. Well, we don't have 172 spots. So what my plea is that we can remove that schedule of off-street parking so that it's more reasonable for who we are.
did you want to remove the whole schedule or just row 3?
Well, I think that all of them are a little ridiculous, but I mean, down at the waterfront, they have to have 1 square foot for each gross floor or
Yeah.
fraction thereof. I mean,
So removal of section 38.439, does that require a motion and a vote?
it requires a motion to vote in on a public hearing.
Motion to strike.
Motion to strike. We have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bagwell.
This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. A vote, start with you, Haley.
Discussion,
Oh, okay.
discussion. So, Matt, what is typical for a downtown like ours? To,
I didn't look into that, to be quite honest with you, because I know that we're sort of landlocked with what we've got for the parking. So, you know, 164 unless we, you know, do something different. And, you know, even if we like painted the nose end parking on College, that's on-street parking, so it doesn't help.
I mean, this looks like it's drawn up for retail, you know, with a Walmart type of scenario with
Yeah.
parking. Yeah, I'm all,
so we do part of what the town is doing is a study, right, of the parking, our parking needs and what we have available. So is that going to be sufficient to?
That study a while back, didn't I?
Yes.
Yes. So we could request from them what their parking study was, but I'm still not sure that it's gonna line up
No.
with what this.
Yeah, no, I agree that we should strike that. I just didn't know if there's something we should put in there in its place.
Okay, no, that's fair. I'll request from Main Street what their study looked like. And then maybe put it next to that informational piece so that we can just see where we are versus where our study said we should be.
Okay,
Matt, if I could clarify briefly, the Main Street exercise was Hill Street Studios. They come in and they laid out what could be additional parking. And if I recall correctly, and it was a huge number that they could come up with, it was then deemed that we have plenty and we don't need, you know, things like put the extra College, East Street, West Street, you know, pull in different kinds of parking. I think
Yeah,
it was
the
then deemed.
Hill Street was a town
Yeah.
initiative,
Yeah.
and you're right, they came up with 468
Yeah.
parking spaces, but those weren't necessarily off-street.
Exactly.
okay, so as I understand it, then we are going to put forth a motion to strike this, but you are going to provide some other information in its place, which we will review at the next meeting.
Right.
We already got the motion to strike. We need to vote now unless, are you satisfied with the conversation or?
I am.
Okay.
Hi.
Yeah, have you looked at special exceptions? You might want to consider that.
You got the same thing going on there,
Yeah, you got issues there with like post office requires so many.
10 spaces.
Per block, I think you should look at that side.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, why don't we,
Actually, maybe striking all of the off-street parking.
Just
because
get rid of it.
there's two sections, one of them says, you know, Larry pointed this out, 1 parking space per table or booth for.
A restaurant.
Plus 1 for every 6 employees. I mean, how you doing?
That would be a problem.
That would be a problem. So, and I think maybe what we do is we make a motion to strike Article 12 off-street parking. We have a parking ordinance that you guys have worked for
Right.
months to get right.
yeah. I would
These
agree
two are
with
pretty
that.
much irrelevant.
So let's revise that motion then. Strike the entire section 12 off street parking.
I would agree with that. So moved.
Second,
Aye, second it.
and I got your I too, so that's a vote aye right here.
Aye.
Perfect. Thanks for pointing that out, Fletcher. I said, thank you for pointing that out.
I was going to.
Well, and thank you, Larry.
We hadn't gotten off the first of the section yet.
Yeah. Any other proposed changes like conditional zoning procedure? And that brings us to Article 14, special use permits.
Well, why don't we? Number 5 is zoning change to commercial to residential. That's for the Jack Richardson's gallery changing over to residential.
Yep.
And we're spelled out the proper form.
The form is in the agenda, as is the map that shows the residential surrounding that particular property. So I guess the motion here would be, do we allow that property to be residential, and we make a motion, vote on it?
Well, is that going to be a single, like a single family dwelling type thing or multiple?
Would you like to step up to the dais, Jeff?
Good evening, commissioners. I think I know everybody, but Jeff Fernim, my wife and I live at 14 King Street. And as you now know, we purchased Jack Richardson Gallery, which is 24 King Street. And to your question, Larry, our plan is a single apartment.
Okay.
And, thought is that there's, plenty of need in town, the hospital workers, educators, et cetera. We'd love to, it's only one home for sure, but hopefully ease a little bit of that crunch where people need a place to live.
Your parking, I notice you have a garage toward the back
Yes.
and a driveway. How many bedrooms are going to be in? No, so I'm trying to think, we're trying to keep parking off of King Street.
Right.
Nobody else is
Yeah.
parked on King.
Yeah, it's kind of the chicken and egg question. We haven't brought in an architect yet
Okay.
because we wanted to get a sense, it's 2,650 square feet, something like that, plus or minus. There'll be a little bit of a storage room in the back
Right.
to the garage, which will cut into the space. I would imagine maybe 2 bedrooms, something like that.
All right.
Maybe 2 bedrooms, a bath and a half bath. But again, we haven't brought in an architect yet. I don't want
Off
it to.
street, no matter what, off-street parking available in some fashion, is that correct?
Yeah, there definitely would be. And my expectation, it would be 1 to 2 cars. I can't imagine it would be more than that. And perhaps 1 could park in the driveway.
Single unit is,
Single unit, yeah.
okay.
I would pass it on then.
Okay.
Good.
Anything else? Okay.
No, sir.
Thanks, Jeff. Well, we then need to have a vote.
Motion even.
Does the motion need to include off-street parking, or is that by right or predetermined?
I would think it's predetermined.
Will the zoning change require a public hearing?
Oh, yeah, you have to have a
what I
public
thought,
hearing for
yeah.
a zoning change.
So what's the procedure here? Would it go?
You can put a contingency on the application that says it requires off-street parking, if you choose to. Then we're gonna take it to public hearing, be joint public hearing with you and with council, and then they'll act that night or not.
So the first thing here is a motion to either allow or deny the application and then a vote for the public hearing. Does that
Works for me.
sound like the appropriate approach?
Yes, I make a motion that we accept it as is.
We have a second?
I'll second.
And
We're
a
actually,
vote?
we're actually recommending this to council, right?
Yes.
We don't,
That's correct.
we don't, we don't make it happen. It's-
Right. And with this gavel, we don't have that power, so.
Put that in.
So we need a vote and we'll start over here.
Aye.
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 Okay, it's unanimous. Jeff? It sounds like we are requesting that you resubmit the application with the off-street parking provision on it.
Well, you don't have to do that. I can update it with the provision that you just made in your
Okay.
motion.
Okay. Okay, that brings us to, I guess, a discussion of the property at 23. And John, would you like to speak at the dais?
Try to put something up on the screen. In all likelihood, it's gonna fail.
Okay,
It's gonna work. Got faith.
23.
Augie Place. Augie Place.
Perfect. Look at, see? Man,
Faith.
how does one see it with bad eyes from here? So, hi, my name is John Chandler. My wife and I have a contract contingent upon a few questions that we were unable to verify what was required in the town zoning. So I'm here before you tonight to clarify a few things so that we can potentially move forward with the project. The project's next door to 23 Market Street, and it's basically the vacant lot that's right across from Allen Custom Furniture, Hassett Deals, depends on how long you've been in a Hancock, I guess. And it might have been something before Allen and Custis. Fletcher?
Built as a car dealership.
Car dealership.
Model
Okay,
Ts, yeah.
so there we go. The property is currently vacant. It's about 44.5 feet wide, and this will show up on the next slide. Or the next page. There we go. There we go. So there's Market Street. You can see at the bottom. It's about 44 feet wide and about 111 feet deep. And it currently has a curb cut to the east. We are proposing, which is on the next slide, there we go, almost. Perfect. It's a 3-story unit with commercial on the first floor, but we would like to have a garage parking in the back of it. So basically about half of it would be commercial in the front. The building's about 55 feet deep and it's 24 feet wide. If you go back, Matt, to the drawing or the plat, you can see there's a driveway to the east, and then that would cut into a 2-car garage so that we could have off-street parking. We think that we could have 4 parking spots to try to alleviate what we just listened to earlier, so that we could have 4 spots on site. And really, that's it. 24 by 55, 3 stories tall. The question, one of the questions was in section 38-154 in your zoning It says buildings may be erected to a height not to exceed 2.5 stories or 35 feet. So the way we interpreted it, the word or means as long as you don't go over 35 feet, you could have a 3-story dwelling or unit. And that's what we're proposing. That height of that is not over 35 feet. The first floor is 10 feet. The next floor is 9 and the top floor is 8, and all that's subject to change. This is just a conceptual drawing to give you a visual of what we had in mind. There would have to be, steps or elevator going up to the 2nd and 3rd floor. They would be individual units with kitchen, bath, sleeping, the whole works.
Each with its own elevator?
No,
So
shared.
Single unit.
Yes. From what we were told at the county, if it's not servicing the commercial, a typical residential that you see, elevator that you see in a lot of houses these days would suffice, but there's still a lot to learn. This is step 1 of a lot of questions.
How many bedrooms?
1 to 2 on each unit. The units are about, so 55 times 24 is what, 1,300 and something like that. So 2 at the most
2 bedrooms per unit.
per unit. Yes. My wife and I plan to use one of them when we figure out what we want to do when we grow up. So,
So in other words, one's gonna be your primary residence or?
use in some type.
I should probably know this. Is the lot itself 23 and like Imaginarium would be what, 25? And
Yeah, there's some jiggering that we're gonna have to do with A, B, C, D, E, F, Gs type of thing.
okay, so it's gonna be like 23A.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I'm asking for tonight has already been talked about, exemption from the 1 lot per 100 square feet. Because if you have 3,000 square feet or even 4,000, that's 40 parking spots. Which is certainly would be difficult. I would also like to have allocated 4 to 6 spots on Queen Street. It seems like they've basically been allocated over time, which is how we ended up using some that Matt discussed earlier. And clarification that as long as it doesn't exceed 35 feet, that a 3-story unit would be acceptable. And also grandfathering from any changes in the parking besides what we've discussed going forward. If all of a sudden in 2 years, someone else sitting up here said, okay, well, we want to have 1 parking spot off street per 200 square feet, and then it comes back on, it would make it very difficult because we're trying to make a decision today based on what we see here.
And that allocation for the 6 spaces is the Queen Street lot?
Yes. And that's it. Any questions?
Questions for John?
John, on Queen Street, you're asking for 4 dedicated parking spots
Not dedicated, allocated,
allocated.
I think, because I'm not sure if anyone has a dedicated that I've seen.
Well, explain how the allocation works.
Matt mentioned earlier, the town has 100 and however many spots, and we have 70 or 80 are allocated based on apartments and things
So
that
it just means they're there.
they're there.
That's
Yes,
basically
sir.
what that means, right?
Yes, sir. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. And how many spaces altogether at Queen Street are there? You all, I know we just covered this, I think.
No, it's a lot.
68.
It's 68?
Yeah.
Okay.
Have many been allocated over there? It seems like a lot of them maybe over here or
Well, there's no formal.
No allocation. Okay.
I think what's happened is, town council, for example, when Janet's building next door put their application in for 3 studio apartments upstairs, I think it was that, yes, you can use this spot.
Mhm.
It wasn't formally allocated, they weren't assigned. if they come home at night and the parking lot's full, they're going somewhere else.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah,
I would
Queen
feel-
Street's closest to you, so.
the Queen Street seemed to make the most sense and hadn't been used to its fullest for sure. And just to protect the purchase of what we're looking to do, I would like to have something in writing saying that we have at least 4 allocated.
Once again, allocated. That means they're yours if they're available. Your tenants come Saturday night and all the restaurants are full Friday, second Friday. What are you gonna do about it?
They're gonna have to find somewhere else to park.
Right.
But I
So
just,
you will reach the point where the total allocations can't add up to more than the total that's there. Right?
that's
Okay.
all, yes.
And you're gonna have off-street parking on the lot. Is that correct? You have a garage?
On street parking, on the property.
Yeah, on the property.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm thinking off street over there, sorry. Yes, on street, off street on the property,
And for
sorry.
how many cars?
At least 2 in the
Okay.
garage, but it looks like there's at least room for 3. I know that because
Okay.
there's the backup area.
Okay, so you've got that pretty much taken care of
Mhm.
on your property.
Yeah, I mean, as far as actually allocating spot, I don't know that we can do that. I mean, spots are there. And as everybody's pretty much been saying, guys come home, lot's full, you gotta park somewhere else.
Yeah, I think that comes down to over allocation. I mean, are we close to that place yet here in Anancock with that many spaces there?
Not with my math, I think came up with the fact that we had 85 additional spaces.
Yeah.
We're at about 50% capacity.
Okay.
And that's counting all potential new residentials, even the ones that are just rumored.
So to Larry's question, and I think I got this right, if we do allocate spots and
I don't
put it
see-
in writing, it's not guaranteed. So
I don't see that we can allocate. I mean, how do you enforce it? You have somebody, a parking lot, cop making sure people get out of spots because these people.
We
can't
have
park.
other
That's not gonna happen.
allocated. The answer is yes.
Allocation's the wrong
But-
word.
That's the wrong word.
Allocation means
Thank
it's
you.
yours,
That's correct. And I don't think we
which
can
is
do that.
basically reserved.
yeah, absolutely. Gallery Fletcher?
And tea leaf. Historically, back in the 80s when this came up, I mean, Ben Askew, we had this 100 square feet. He would, if somebody wanted to put something downtown, he would say within a couple 100 feet, if there's so many parking, he'd count Queen Street and say, okay, so you need 22 parking places. So we were using the same parking places over and over again for different buildings. You know what I mean? So it just, the ordinance just says that they're available, doesn't say they're allocated. So it seems like John is, that's how they used to do it. So if there were so many off-street parking within public parking within, 100 feet of 200 yards, I don't know what the distance was.
So there's a presumption of availability
Yeah,
then.
something they were never allocated. It just satisfied the zoning because you didn't have to have anything written. You just have to say, well, there's so many parking places within so many feet. And I don't know if that was the right way to do it, but that's historically how they did it. Because I think we were counting the same parking places, over and over again for different businesses.
So the term allocated,
You're wrong.
have we applied that anywhere for any other properties in town thus far?
So
If
when
we
you said
fill 'em-
upstairs and Janet's, none of that was done in writing, any of the apartments there, or?
I think it's just a tally
Yeah.
of,
I mean, I like Fletcher's approach is perfect. Yeah.
So, none was ever allocated. It just
Listen, John.
satisfied the zoning because you had so many off-street parkings within so many feet of the
Correct.
building. And that's as far as it went.
If we fill them all up 24 hours a day, we're geniuses and you can park in my yard.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, in 5 years, that something changes and,
No.
and maybe the building hadn't been built, because that's, yeah.
if the
Not
need
sure
does
how quick
arise
this
for a
is gonna
parking
happen.
attendant, I can do that in my retirement, but we'll discuss salary later.
I'm not saying that's the right way we did it, but I think that's how they looked
I
at
think,
it.
I think the word is wrong. I think you.
Yeah,
were
I mean, you
correct.
can't use the only way you can allocate something to guarantee the allocation is to
Can't
put
do
down a
it.
sign down which says nobody parks here except for Joe. You know, and how do you enforce that? You know, one of your tenants comes back and the spot's filled, we gotta go look for the person that owns the car. Hey, you're in my spot, get out, you know?
So it feels like at this point, it's kind of a non-issue.
Okay.
And if that's the case, are you satisfied with that?
Would say, could I get something that says that the conceptual plan meets current zoning?
Okay. Yeah, and
Something.
when we knock out, assuming that we do, I don't suspect that it won't happen. When we knock out section 12, I think you're covered.
And if it could say that, that if section 12 gets removed, you meet all zoning except for section 12.
Yeah.
Because time is going.
You see the next step you're gonna take, fill out a zoning application. The zoning application that you put in says that, you know, a couple of things that, like the BD, we want to redact that.
Mhm.
So we can fill out your zoning in a way that meets current code.
Perfect.
And once we do that, obviously for obvious reasons, Fletcher will sign off on this. But the application as it sits right here meets all the setback requirements, meets the height requirements to building in the downtown. There's nothing that would keep you from getting this zoning permit approved. We would just need to maybe adjust a little bit about what's in the project description so that it aligns with current code.
Thank you.
And then Fletcher's name's on it.
Okay. Any other questions for John?
All right, thank you.
Thanks, John. So, just my own personal comment, I loved the drawing, and considering what, you know, what we've seen proposed for that space in the past, I'd say we jump on this opportunity. So, we'll go for a motion now. Do we have a motion to approve?
There's nothing to approve. The zoning
So-
administrator is gonna complete the zoning application.
Okay, so he's going to submit the application.
It's a use by right, right?
Yeah, yeah, there's nothing.
Saying it.
Yeah, it's by right.
Okay. Looks like I gotta brush up on Robert's Rules of Order here. Okay, so we move along then to
It's
Yeah.
the special
Special use.
permits.
yeah, Article 14.
Really, the changes in here are almost all grammatical or, you know, just clarifying.
Yeah.
But the one section I wanted to make sure that was abundantly clear is it's not clear anywhere else that when a property exchanges hands in any way, shape, or form, the special use permit ceases to exist.
There. Already determined that.
Well, it wasn't clearly written in here, so what I
Bill's-
just wanted to make sure, plus I had somebody ask a really interesting question of me, and I didn't think that the code covered it, was, you know, I'm living in a house that has an Airbnb license. I'm thinking of selling my house to the LLC that owns the Airbnb. So that's the kind of thing I wanted to just make sure we were tightened down on, and that's, I made sure it was to between any taxable entity and blah, blah, blah. So there's not a lot of substantive changes in the special use permit, other than that one really strong clarification.
Matt, in the first sentence, 38,496 statement of intent, that is a little confusing to me. It seemed that you're changing incompatible to compatible, correct?
Yes.
It seemed to me the way it read
38.
initially was was proper.
Can you repeat
Sarah,
the
you-
section number?
Yes. the first
38,
one.
196.
Yeah, Sarah, you're the grammar
Which
expert.
section, ma'am? Which section?
The first
That-
statement of intent,
Page D,
20.
top line.
Yeah, I see it.
statement of intent. It is recognized in this chapter that certain uses are not necessarily incompatible with the uses traditionally associated with standard zoning districts. That sounds appropriate to me.
See, I thought it said
Here
aren't
it is.
necessarily compatible with the uses traditionally associated with.
Is it
standard
negative or
zoning.
double negative?
Yeah, I know, that's what you get the double negative.
Trying to say that they may be compatible or they may be incompatible.
They may not be compatible,
They may not be.
and that's why you need a permit.
Okay, so a clearer way to say that, I think, would be may be incompatible. Instead of
Yeah.
are not
Not
necessarily.
Yeah.
So it
incompatible.
may be
Incompatible.
incompatible.
We have any
I
English
just
teachers
go ahead
here?
and say we're both right there, Carol.
Yeah, well, but you've qualified it by if the proper mitigating conditions are enacted along with proposed exceptions. So it's just kind of a confusing.
Oh, I
Sentence.
appreciate the clarity.
So. Coming back in. May be incompatible unless the proper mitigating conditions.
It's just getting worse.
Yeah, I think it's, yeah.
Well, this is
So-
another one that's not on fire. We don't have an issue right now. It was just, we had 5. If you remember, we had 5 ordinances that other cities and towns had experienced dramatic risk. And this was one of them. We picked it out. There's nothing to worry about, so we can take our time. I could send it to the lawyer. You know,
Oh, Lord.
May be incompatible, doesn't that cover it?
Yeah, I'm
But
with.
then how's the rest of the sentence?
Well, maybe
No,
just,
that's,
well,
that's
just
for,
strike the rest
I'm
of the sentence.
strike the whole thing.
Just stop
or
after
have the
maybe
attorney look at that,
incompatible with
but I think
uses traditionally, yeah,
that covers it.
that works, right, Sarah?
Okay, so then the recommendation is recognized that in chapter certain uses may be incompatible with the uses traditionally associated with standard zoning districts, period.
Period.
Is that it?
Yeah.
That's it.
And we strike the rest of that paragraph.
Yeah,
and I'll
Yep.
listen to that on the minute, on the audio.
Okay.
okay,
All right.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. Any other comments, concerns with section 14?
Just one minor correction, 38,498 conditions and bonds, number 3, A3. It says provision for adequate in-site or off-site parking. It should be on-site.
Yep. Thank you.
That's it.
Good. That's a great question. Hang on for a second. Do we need to get a motion to approve the changes? I'm gonna assume so. Do we have a
And
motion?
then I'll present a clean copy next month.
Yeah,
Okay.
motion to approve?
So moved.
Second, good. Vote?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous.
Ringing all the bells tonight.
Yes, indeed. Okay. Thanks to the folks in the gallery for your patience on all of that. And it occurred to me, Matt, that I think Scott's intent was to push the public comment to the beginning of the agenda. So that things could be addressed that we could then discuss later in the meeting, just.
The 4th time that he asked me, I'll get that one right.
Okay.
Sorry.
Good. Well, that brings us to public comment. Do we have anyone who cares to speak, address the panel?
question. The things that I put, that I sent you for the duration and renewal on the last page.
Have been corrected.
Okay, thank you. And,
Gone. That's rare. Thank you very much. Commissioners' comments. I think, I'm not the commissioner. I'm just standing in for Scott, so I've probably said enough during this entire.
I have one
proceeding.
question
Yeah.
for Matt. How many Airbnbs do we have licensed in town, and are there any other applications pending?
No application pending and we have 14 active.
Every time, I guess everybody's seen, maybe not what's been going on in Cape Charles about Airbnbs, and every time I read something about that on the Eastern Shore, it kind of gets me going, how are our defenses? And,
The state's gonna force our hand, but until then, we're gonna keep as few as possible.
okay, yeah.
Thanks, Bill. Also, commissioner comments, is that just everyone or is that the commissioner chair? Is this?
No, all of you.
Okay. All right. Anyone else?
Only what Bagwell said, what Cape Charles is going through, we can't do anything about it, but everyone knows, everyone's read the paper. And you are exactly correct. If we can hold it down until someone forces our hand, I think we're better off. I think about it every time I pick the paper up.
I strongly believe that even when our hand is forced, we are not Cape Charles. We have no beach. We are not within the same proximity of across the bay, Virginia Beach, Norfolk. And in that way, we're just naturally protected, but it's good to have, the rule in there anyhow. That's my comment. Larry?
Nothing to say.
Okay, so motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second if nobody else hasn't.
We got 2 seconds on that, so a second and third, and vote to.
Aye.
Aye.
Good, Chairman.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Everybody voted.
Good job.
We are adjourned.
You like that thing.
That thing is great. I mean, come on. What do you need? My pleasure.
Okay.
I take good comments while you're talking and discussing. The mayor